Did you ever notice how fast your body pulls back the moment something feels unfamiliar, or just a little too difficult? Not even a loud, no, just a quiet recoil, like your whole nervous system whispering, "Please, not again." And you call it laziness. You name it procrastination. You tell yourself you're unmotivated, undisciplined, weak-willed. But what if the truth is softer than that? What if avoiding hard things was never about the thing? What if it was about the cost? The quiet, invisible cost your body learned to measure a long, long time ago. Because the first hard thing you faced didn't just test you. It broke something. Maybe it was a moment when you tried with everything you had, and no one noticed. Maybe it was the time you asked for help and got punished for being vulnerable. Or the time you showed up, tender, exposed, open, and life slammed the door in your face. You learned early that effort wasn't safe. That trying meant risking being shamed, ignored, misunderstood. And your body, that miraculous, deeply intuitive system, took notes, not in words, but in feelings. Feelings like a clenched stomach, a racing heart, a foggy mind that suddenly forgets what to do. So now, when something hard shows up, a difficult conversation, a project that feels too big, a goal that might fail, your system doesn't ask, "Can I do this?" It asks, "Will I survive what happens if I fail?" That's not resistance. That's protection. That's your inner child, the younger you, standing behind the door with a hand on the lock, whispering, "We can't do this again. Please don't make us." And you obey, not because you're lazy, but because your body still remembers what you forgot. You forgot the shame, but your nervous system didn't. You forgot the feeling of being made small when you wanted to grow, but your unconscious never did. You forgot the way your effort was met with silence, or criticism, or withdrawal, but your shadow still guards that doorway. Carl Jung called it the complex, a set of memories, emotions, and beliefs that live in your psyche, half seen, always active. And one of the strongest is this: I must not try too hard. Because when I do, something bad happens. So you avoid effort, you avoid challenge, you avoid the risk of showing up. And it's not because you're weak. It's because you learn to survive. Survival often looks like sabotage. But it's not sabotage. It's loyalty. Loyalty to a younger self who needed safety more than success. And here you are, decades later, still honoring that need. You think you're avoiding work. But what you're really avoiding is heartbreak. The heartbreak of not being seen, of being too much, or not enough, of trying, and failing, and being alone with the shame of it. So instead of facing the possibility of failure, you hide in perfectionism, or you overthink every move until the moment passes, or you lose motivation the second you start, and then blame yourself, because you don't know this isn't a mindset problem. It's a nervous system memory. You don't know that your freeze response, the blankness, the numbness, the sudden urge to clean your kitchen instead of write that page, is not laziness. It's grief. Grief that you had to carry something heavy, so young. Grief that no one helped you carry it. And now, when something feels heavy again, your body whispers, "Don't, just don't." So you avoid, and then you punish yourself for avoiding. You tell yourself to push harder, hustle more, stop being so dramatic. But all that does is scare the younger you even more. Because now, the voice that shamed you, it's your own. The one person they were hoping would protect them, is now yelling too. Do you see the cycle? You avoid because it hurts. Then you judge yourself for avoiding, which makes the pain louder, which makes the avoidance stronger. And all of it, rooted in a very old story. A story where effort didn't lead to reward. It led to rejection. Where challenge didn't grow you, it exposed you. Where being strong meant hiding your fear. So now, even your strength feels fragile. You carry this contradiction in your chest. I want to grow, but I'm terrified to try. And no one sees it. Because on the outside, you look fine, functional, capable, smart. But inside there's a small voice asking, what if it happens again? What if I try, and fail, and they see me fall? What if I try, and succeed, and they take it from me anyway? That voice isn't negative. It's not pessimistic. It's scared. And it has every right to be. Because there was a time when your effort did cost you. Emotionally, psychologically, maybe even physically, and your brilliant, sensitive system learned to shut it down. You learned not to ask, not to reach, not to expect, because expecting meant being disappointed. And disappointment, for a child, isn't just sad, it's shattering. So now, as an adult, you flinch at challenge. You wait until the last minute. You wait until it's safe. Until you're sure no one's watching. Until you can escape if you need to. But deep down, you're still waiting for someone to say, "I see how hard this is for you. I know what it cost you before. And I'm not here to shame you for it." That's all any of us want. Really. To be met in the place we got stuck. To be seen not just for what we do, but for what we survived. And the truth is, if you're avoiding hard things, it's not because you're incapable. It's because your heart remembers a time when doing hard things meant losing something important. And that's not weakness. That's intelligence. That's adaptation. That's your system saying, "Never again." But what if you could talk to that system now? What if you could sit down with the younger version of yourself, the one who learned to be afraid, and say, "You were right, it wasn't safe back then. But I'm here now, and we're not alone anymore." Not a pep talk, not a push, just presence, just permission, to feel what was too much to feel before. To notice the fear, without shaming it. To name the avoidance, without moralizing it. Because everything you do, even the things that confuse or frustrate you, make sense in the context of your nervous system's story. And healing doesn't mean forcing yourself to do hard things with a brave face. Healing means remembering why they became hard in the first place. And offering something new, a softer voice, a gentler pace, a moment of pause where your old story doesn't have to keep driving the car. You don't have to abandon yourself to grow. You don't have to override your fear to be worthy. You can build new strength, not through force, but through safety, through trust. And trust doesn't come from pressure. It comes from presence. It comes from listening to the part of you that wants to run. And saying, "I won't leave you behind." And when that part finally believes you, you'll start to notice something strange. You'll still feel resistance, but it won't own you. You'll still feel afraid, but you'll keep moving anyway. Not because you silenced your fear, but because you honored it, and then walked beside it. Quietly, gently, with love. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you. And maybe for the first time, you'll feel what it's like to try. Without betraying yourself. Not pushing past your limits, but expanding them, inch by inch, breath by breath. Not because someone told you to, but because something inside you whispered, "It's time." Time to stop treating your fear as the enemy. Time to stop calling your softness a flaw. Time to see your resistance not as a wall, but as a door. One that only opens when you approach it with care. You don't need to break it down. You don't need to fake courage. You don't need to become someone else to earn your own growth. You are not here to prove your worth through exhaustion. You are not here to chase perfection through pain. You are not broken because you hesitate. You are not behind because it takes you longer. You are human. You are healing. And healing is slow. Healing is not a race toward success. It's a homecoming to the parts of you that were never allowed to exist fully. Like the part that wanted to rest. The part that wanted to explore. The part that asked too many questions. The part that didn't want to do it alone. All those parts, they've been waiting for you to notice. That avoiding hard things wasn't about weakness. It was about loyalty. And now you have a choice. Not to push harder, but to listen deeper. To pause when your chest tightens. To ask, "What are you afraid will happen?" To whisper back, "I'm here, and we'll figure it out, together." Because every time you felt stuck, every time you failed, every time you ghosted your own dreams, you weren't giving up, you were trying to stay safe. But safety isn't hiding anymore. Safety is connection. Safety is understanding. Safety is telling the truth about what it cost you to try before, and letting that truth be met with kindness. And when that happens, when the old pain is finally witnessed, something shifts. It's quiet. It's not dramatic, but it's real. You notice your breath deepens. When you sit down to work, you stop bracing for shame. When you make a mistake, you reach for help, and don't feel like a burden. You give yourself time, and don't feel guilty for taking it. And that That's not weakness. That's a new kind of strength. The kind that doesn't burn you out. The kind that doesn't demand you bleed to be worthy. The kind that whispers, you are allowed to want something, and take your time getting there. You are allowed to be afraid, and still be brave. You are allowed to move slowly, and still be powerful. You are allowed to need safety before you stretch. That's not regression. That's regulation. That's how we unlearn the idea that pain is the price of progress. That's how we rewrite the story that says, you must earn rest. That's how we come back to ourselves. Not through discipline, but through devotion. Devotion to the part of you that once carried the whole world on their shoulders, and now just wants to lay it down. Let them. Let the younger you feel what they never got to feel. Supported, seen, safe. And then, when they feel held, when the grip of old fear loosens, they'll start to trust you. And that trust will carry you places force never could. Because force is loud, but trust is loyal. Force demands you be ready now. Trust says, I'll walk with you, as long as it takes. Force burns through everything. Trust builds something you can come home to. So maybe today, you don't need to fix your life. Maybe you just need to stop calling your fear the enemy. Maybe you just need to sit quietly, hand over heart, and say to the part of you that avoids everything hard, I understand now, and I won't shame you anymore. And from there, from that softness, you begin again. Still you, but gentler. Still growing, but no longer punishing yourself for how long it takes. Still afraid, sometimes, but no longer alone in it. And that is where everything begins to change. You might not notice it at first. Not in a big way. Not in the way you used to chase the overnight breakthrough, the dramatic push through resistance. No, this change will come like a sigh you didn't know you were holding. Like a quiet moment when you realize you didn't flinch this time. You sat down, opened the page, and didn't feel the familiar wave of dread. You asked the question you used to avoid. You started, even when it wasn't perfect. You allowed yourself to begin. That's the shift, not in what you achieve, but in how gently you approach yourself in the trying. Because the goal was never to become fearless. Fear is part of being alive. The goal was to stop letting fear become a verdict. A verdict on your worth, on your readiness, on your right to exist as you are. You're not here to be measured by your output. You're not a machine. You're a soul that once learned effort equals danger. And now, you're slowly, beautifully, proving to yourself that effort can be something else. That doing hard things doesn't have to reopen old wounds. It can be an act of healing. 2. When done with care, when done with presence, when done with a voice inside that says, it's okay if this takes time. It's okay if you rest in the middle. It's okay if you come back tomorrow. You don't owe anyone your urgency. You don't owe the world a performance of strength. What you owe is something far more sacred. Yourself. The self who survived. The self who waited. The self who now gets to learn that trying can feel different. Less like a battlefield, more like a return. Because underneath it all, beneath the habits, the hesitation, the endless delay, is not someone broken. It's someone burdened. Someone tired of carrying the story that struggle is punishment. Someone exhausted from running from the very thing they long for. And what they long for is trust. Not in others, not even in outcomes, but in themselves. Trust that they won't shame themselves again. Trust that they can hold both effort and kindness at once. Trust that they can try without betraying their softness. That's the real work. That's the brave, invisible labor you've been doing every time you pause instead of push. Every time you feel the urge to avoid and ask what that part of you needs instead. Every time you show up, not perfectly, but presently. That's healing. And healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like circling the same lesson again and again, until your body finally believes the new truth. And what is that truth? That you are not your avoidance. That you are not your freeze response. That you are not the missed deadlines, or the things left unfinished, or the dreams that still live on the shelf. You are not what didn't happen. You are what still could. And you don't need to earn that possibility by suffering more. You just need to be willing to meet yourself where you are. With grace, with patience, With the kind of love that says, I see why this has been hard. And I'm not going anywhere. That's how change begins. Not with force, but with staying. With staying in the room when you want to disappear. With staying with your feelings when they overwhelm you. With staying present to your fear, not to conquer it, but to understand it. And when you do that, something softens. The part of you that's been bracing for impact begins to exhale. And that exhale? That's the door. The one you thought was locked. The one you kept avoiding. It opens now, not with a crash, but a whisper. And the whisper says, you are safe to try again. Not because it will be easy. Not because you won't fall. But because this time, you're not abandoning yourself. And that, more than anything, is what changes a life. When you're ready, take the first small step. Not for anyone else. Not for the outcome. But for the part of you that waited too long to feel held in the trying. You don't have to avoid hard things forever. You just have to learn how to approach them with softness. And now, maybe, you're ready. Not to push through, but to walk beside yourself. One quiet breath at a time. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you. And if nothing else happens today, if you don't take the leap, if you don't tackle the project, if you don't change a thing, but you sat here, with your hand on your heart, and finally said to yourself, I understand now, I'm not lazy, I'm not broken, I was just scared, and I had every reason to be. Then that is enough. Because understanding is movement, compassion is progress, and gentleness is how the old fear begins to loosen its grip. You're not late, you're not behind, you're arriving, in your own time, to your own life, with your own voice finally speaking up after years of silence. And what it says matters. It says, let's try differently this time. Not perfectly, not quickly, but differently, with more listening, with fewer expectations, with the kind of care you never received, but always needed. You don't have to climb every mountain today. You just have to stop stabbing your own feet for not sprinting. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to be scared. You are allowed to take one hesitant, trembling step, and still call that courage. Because it is courage, the invisible kind, the kind that doesn't make noise, but remakes everything, the kind of courage that says, I'm not going to run from myself anymore. And that is sacred. That moment, when you stop abandoning the softest parts of you, in the name of becoming someone else, that's when you begin to return to your real strength. The strength that doesn't harden. The strength that doesn't numb. The strength that holds your fear, and walks with it anyway. Not to defeat it, but to let it speak. And finally be heard, because that's all it ever wanted. Not to win, not to succeed, just to be seen, without being punished. And now, it is. Because now, you see it. And you're learning to stay. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you.